Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
I've done a few videos about license plates, the tags that go on your car, and what happens if the license plate falls into the wrong hands. You remember a story a while back, I think in Colorado, where a person with access to the evidence room, I believe the police department, grabbed some plates out of there and put them on his own vehicle so that he could, go on toll roads and so on without incurring any charges. And of course, the toll roads generate tolls and send those notices to somebody. So somebody knows it's happening. And then, of course, solving that mystery is part of the problem. Well, carbuzz.com, Jared Neves writes, and Donna sent me the story, Florida woman receives hundreds of dollars in fines from a state she's never visited. So she's never been there. And she's getting all kinds of fines racked up because her license plate apparently went visiting there without her. And this is even crazier because her old license plate is now on a Lexus RX in Washington State. And the driver is racking up those traffic violations while the woman who owns the plate is in Florida. Or at least she owned it. Not quite sure how it got up there to Washington. South Florida resident is at her wit's end after receiving multiple traffic fines and toll violations totaling hundreds of dollars from a state she's never been to. She's never been to Washington. She told WSVN 7 News that her problem started when she purchased a used vehicle in 2018. The dealer reportedly gave her license plate to her, but later asked her to return the plate. So she returned that plate, and that plate has since been affixed to a black Lexus RX in Washington State, where it's racking up all kinds of traffic violations. Now, asked whether she's ever visited Kent, Washington, which is where this is all happening, she said, "I don't know where that is." She describes the entire mess as a nightmare she can't wake up from and says going to collect the mail is particularly stressful. Every time I open my mail, I feel like something punched me in my stomach. And Florida is a strange state when it comes to how license plates are dealt with, because there are these independent people who deal with the insurance and the registration and the plates. And so that's the tricky part. Now, you can also do this at the dealership when you buy a car, but every state seemingly does plates differently. So I know some states, they require you to turn in your old plates. I got a bunch of old plates kicking around in my garage just because in Michigan they give you a new plate and it's like, here's your new plate. And your old plate is up to you to dispose of. The woman's received multiple driving violations, or at least her license plate has, which show a black Lexus speeding and sailing through red traffic lights. Obviously distressed by this, she just wants to get the bottom once and for all. She says, "I have no clue. How did that person get my old license plate?" The news outlet contacted the Florida Department of Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles to investigate and was told that the license plate had been marked as lost or stolen in their system. Unfortunately, there's no explanation as to how the plate remained registered to her, which is even more confusing since she has a Lexus, but it's in a different color. So for whatever reason, it was marked lost or stolen, but still pops up in the computer tied to her. And so obviously, when Washington says, "Oh, we've got an out-of-state plate here," and they go look it up, it should come back lost or stolen, obviously, and that's not happening. "I'm very upset," she said, adding that this has been going on too long, and we're talking about my life here. Thankfully, it seems the problem may be a thing of the past. Florida state officials reportedly reached out to her and have since removed the plate from her name and address. And you hope the people in Washington feed the plate into some kind of system that says, "Officers, if you encounter this plate, please stop the driver, pull this car over, and deal with this to make sure it stops happening." Well, that should stop the fines from coming to her. It makes you wonder how long the reckless Lexus driver will continue to break the law without consequences. Stealing license plates is often how devious individuals move about undetected and let them get away with multiple violations, as we've seen here. However, some criminally enterprising individuals have also used stolen plates to steal vehicles and move them to other locations. In 2021, a syndicate was busted for attempting to steal and smuggle luxury cars in the UAE. With the advent of digital plates and their tracking capabilities, stolen plates may soon be a thing of the past. But if this happens to you, perhaps our guide on what to do when your license plate is stolen may be of some help. And so carbuzz.com has a handy, helpful checklist of what you can do if your license plate is stolen. And it's kind of interesting because I've talked before about how I had a case years ago involving somebody whose car got stolen. And when the car got stolen, it got stripped. They found the car up on blocks, wheels missing, battery missing, stereo missing, steering wheel maybe missing. I'm trying to remember. A bunch of stuff out of the trunk was missing. And of course, the license plate was missing. And one of the big bones of contention I had with the insurance adjuster, he said nothing of value is taken from the car. And that was the quote, nothing of value. And so at trial, I ran down the list of all the things that were taken from the car. And he had to admit that they all had value. Battery has value. Wheels have value. Steering wheel's got value, right? And when I said license plate, he goes, no value to the license plate. None. Really, no value. I said, have you ever heard of anybody stealing a license plate and putting it on a car for a nefarious purpose? Something to that effect. I might not have used the word nefarious. And the guy goes, no, never heard of that. And I'm like, dude, you didn't watch all the bad detective movies? You never read the Hardy Boys books? What? License plates get stolen and used all the time for bad purposes. And so, this is what happens. So it makes you wonder, because she says that she went to the dealership, bought a car, they gave her the license plate, and later asked her to return it, presumably because they'd gotten a different plate for her car or something. I don't know. But at one point in time, the plate is in the possession of the dealership. Now, the problem you've got most likely is that if it's a large dealership, there's a ton of people working there, ton of people. And they keep pretty good inventory on the things that matter, like the cars, okay? Because they got a floor plan, they got to finance all that stuff, Fargo, right? It's important to keep track of the cars on the lot. They probably also keep decent track of their inventory of parts. And I bet if you go to the parts counter, that counter probably locks up like Fort Knox at night so parts don't go walking out of there. But what happens to a license plate that was on a car that was sold to a customer, but the plate got replaced for whatever reason, and now it's just sitting here? Who is guarding that plate, if anyone? And that's the problem, is that probably no one. So the plate gets out and somebody knows, hey, guess what? If this plate is in another state, it gives someone carte blanche to just run red lights and speed cameras, all kinds of stuff, until they get pulled over. And a very good friend of mine, moved to another state. And when he moved to another state, he had the Michigan plate on his car. Moves to another state, and he gets the notice saying that his plate's about to expire, but of course they send that to his old address here in Michigan. And somehow it works its way out to him, and he's so busy working, he forgot about it. And he was driving, and he actually told me that I think he made it a couple years before he decided he probably should break down and get himself a local California license plate. And he told me later, he goes, I honestly think, because he goes, I saw police officers in traffic. I saw cop cars. He goes, I honestly think that they see an out-of-state plate. They're going, no big deal. As long as he's not, breaking the law at that moment. And so he had an expired out-of-state plate on his car. And again, how they mark what's up to date in each state's a little different with the color-coded tags or whatever. And so maybe they glanced at his plate and said, he's from out of state, but who knows. But drove it that way for a couple of years. And if he had run any red lights or any speed cameras in that situation, those would have caught up with him. But he said that, he saw police cars in traffic and nobody ever bothered him, despite the fact he's driving on very expired out-of-state plates. So weird stuff, the world of license plates. I'm not sure how I feel about the digital license plates. My concern is that anything that's digital and electronic is prone to breaking down, malfunctioning, and possibly hacking. And my number one concern is that somewhere down the road, a police officer can pull me over and go, do you know why I pulled you over? And I say, of course, I have no idea. Why? Come back here. And the license plate's going to be blinking or malfunctioning or showing some kind of idiot light to indicate that it's malfunctioning. Your license plate is malfunctioning. And that's a phrase I never thought I'd say out loud. But there you go. I mean, a license plate's got one job, and it's got one part that's non-moving, and you want to replace that with something digital. So again, I know people say, Steve, you're an old guy. You're scared of progress and change. No, I'm not scared of progress and change. There are some things that are so simple, they don't need to be updated or replaced. But then again, this story might be one indication of why we need them. So I'll give you that. Donna sent me that. Thank you very much from carbuzz.com. Jared Neves wrote that. Florida woman receives hundreds of dollars of fines from a state she's never been to. Questions or comments? Put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. Recently, I ate at a real nice family restaurant. Every table had an argument going.